There's a man out there who knows my name, my address, and what I look like. And to this day, more than 30 years later, nobody has ever figured out who he was. I was 9 years old when it started, just a few days before my 10th birthday. My mum was making dinner and realized she was out of pasta sauce. She handed me $2 and told me to run to the corner store and grab a jar. We lived in a quiet neighborhood back then, the kind of place where kids rode bikes until the streetlights came on, and nobody thought twice about sending their daughter 3 blocks down the sidewalk on a Tuesday afternoon. Different time, different world. I walked to the store, grabbed the sauce, got my change, and started heading home. The sun was getting low, but it wasn't dark yet. The street was empty. I remember the sound of my shoes on the sidewalk and the weight of the glass jar in the plastic bag swinging against my leg. That's when I noticed the man. He appeared from somewhere behind me. I didn't see where he came from. 1 second I was alone, and the next there was someone walking beside me, matching my pace exactly, like we were old friends heading somewhere together. He looked normal. Average height, clean clothes, maybe late 30s or early 40s. Nothing about him screamed dangerous. He had a calm smile on his face when he looked down at me and said, "Hi." I didn't respond. My mum had taught me that. Don't talk to strangers, keep walking. But he kept talking anyway. He told me his name was Dr. Ramsey. He said he was a pediatrician. He asked me what my name was. He told me I had really pretty hair. He asked if I liked candy because he had some in his car, which was parked just around the corner. I didn't say a single word. I just walked faster. And then I ran. I sprinted the entire rest of the way home, slammed the front door behind me, locked it, and told my mum everything between gasps of breath. She called the police right away. They came out, took a report, told us to keep our eyes open and be careful. Standard stuff. And that was supposed to be the end of it. But it was just the beginning. About a week later, my older brother was sitting by the front window doing homework when he noticed a car. A blue Ford Galaxy, older model, moving down our street at barely a crawl. The man behind the wheel was looking directly at our house. He was smiling. And as the car passed, he raised one hand off the steering wheel and waved, like he knew us, like he was saying hello to neighbors. My brother told my mum. She called the police again. They said they'd increase patrols in the area. After that, the blue car became a part of our daily life. Every single day, sometimes once, sometimes 2 or 3 times, that same blue Ford would roll past our house. Always slow, always with the same man behind the wheel, always with that smile. Sometimes he would just drive by. Other times he would park across the street for 10 or 15 minutes, engine off, just sitting there, watching the house, before pulling away. My mum started keeping all the curtains closed. Then, the phone calls started. The first one came on a weeknight. My mum answered. A man's voice, calm and polite, asked for me by name. Not just my first name, my full name. He said he just wanted to check in on me. He said he hoped I was doing well. My mum slammed the phone down and stood in the kitchen with her hand over her mouth. The calls kept coming. Sometimes late at night when the house was dark, sometimes in the middle of a Saturday afternoon while we were eating lunch. The man on the phone always sounded pleasant, friendly even, but the things he knew were impossible for a stranger to know. He knew my brother's names and ages. He knew what school I attended. He knew what time I left for school in the morning and what time I got home. One time, he described the outfit I had been wearing the day before, down to the color of my shoes. My mum stopped letting me play outside. Then the school called. Someone had phoned a front office claiming to be my father. He said there was a family emergency and that he needed to come pick me up immediately. The secretary asked for identification information. The caller got flustered and hung up. When my parents heard about it, the color drained from my dad's face. A few nights later, I woke up to my mom screaming from the living room. The French doors at the front of our house were standing wide open, both of them. My mom swore on everything she believed in that she had locked them before bed. The deadbolt, the chain, all of it. My dad grabbed a flashlight and ran out to the porch, scanned the yard, looked up and down the street. Nothing. Nobody. just the distant sound of a car engine fading into the night. Maybe a week after that, my two brothers were in their bedroom getting ready for bed. One of them glanced toward the window. The curtain was pulled shut, but there was a gap, maybe an inch, where the fabric didn't quite meet the edge of the frame. And through that gap, pressed flat against the glass, was a face. A man's face. Eyes open, staring in, watching them. My brother screamed so loud the neighbors called. My dad grabbed the flashlight and his baseball bat and ran outside. The yard was empty, but the dirt beneath the bedroom window was torn up with shoe prints. Someone had been standing there for a while, long enough to dig in. That was the night my father stopped sleeping. The whole thing went on for about 18 months. A year and a half of phone calls, drive-bys, and someone testing our doors and windows in the dead of night. And then one day, it stopped. No final incident. No dramatic confrontation. The phone stopped ringing. The blue car stopped coming. The face stopped appearing at the windows. It ended as quietly and suddenly as it had begun. Like a switch had been flipped somewhere that we didn't have access to. I'm in my 40s now. I have kids of my own, and I want you to understand something. It has been more than 3 decades, and there are still nights where I wake up in a sweat because I dreamed that someone was standing in the corner of my bedroom, just beyond the edge of the light, watching me sleep, smiling. I never learned his real name, and the thing that has haunted me my entire adult life is a single question that I will never be able to answer. Did he stop because he lost interest, or did he stop because he found someone who didn't get away? I don't go camping alone anymore. I won't even consider it. And if you heard what happened to me in the backcountry near Mount Rainier, you wouldn't either. A few years back, I planned a solo trip into the wilderness in Washington state. Not a campground trip. Not the kind of thing where you pull into a gravel lot and set up your tent 50 feet from a family grilling hot dogs. This was deep backcountry. Real wilderness. The kind of terrain where you can hike for 2 or 3 full days and never see another person. No cell service. No trail markers. No sounds except wind and water and birds. That was the whole point. I wanted to disappear from the world for a week. I had about 7 days of food in my pack and no set route. The plan was to wander through the valleys and ridgelines, set up camp wherever looked good each night, and just exist in the silence. I'd done trips like this before. I'm comfortable in the woods. I know what I'm doing out there. The first 2 days were everything I wanted. Clear skies, crisp air, the total absence of other people. I crossed a couple of creeks, pushed through some dense, old-growth forest, and found a beautiful spot on a small plateau overlooking a valley. I remember thinking that this was exactly why I did this. Out here, the world goes quiet. Your thoughts slow down. It's the closest thing to peace I've ever found. On the 3rd night, I set up camp near a shallow creek, built a small fire, cooked some freeze-dried meal, sat and watched the flames for a while. Around 10 o'clock, I let the fire die down to coals and crawled into my tent. I woke up sometime around 2 in the morning. I couldn't explain why at first. There was no noise that I could identify, no wind, no animal sounds. It was dead silent, actually. And maybe that's what woke me. You spend enough time in the wilderness, and you develop a sense for when something has changed. The forest has a baseline. Insects, wind through branches. Small creatures moving in the undergrowth. When all of that stops at once, something is wrong. I lay still for a minute, listening. Nothing. Then I unzipped the tent and looked out. There was a man sitting next to my fire pit. He was sitting cross-legged on the ground, maybe 8 feet from my tent. Just sitting there in the dark, staring at the dead coals like he was waiting for them to reignite. He had no backpack, no sleeping bag, no gear of any kind that I could see. Just a regular-looking person in normal clothes, sitting in the dirt in the middle of absolute nowhere at 2 o'clock in the morning. When I opened the tent flap, his head snapped toward me, fast, like something mechanical. His eyes went wide, and for about 1 full second we just stared at each other. Neither of us moved. Neither of us said anything. Then he stood up and ran. full sprint into the tree line. I heard branches cracking and brush snapping for a few seconds, and then nothing. I sat there with my heart hammering for a long time. I kept my flashlight on and swept it around the campsite over and over. Nothing. He was gone. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was on drugs. Maybe he was a lost hiker having some kind of mental break. Maybe he wandered away from a trail somewhere and ended up at my fire by pure chance. Strange things happen in the wilderness. I told myself there was a logical explanation, and I half believed it. I packed up at first light and moved on. I didn't follow any trail. I cut through dense forest, climbed a ridge, dropped into a completely different drainage on the other side, and hiked hard for most of the day. I covered roughly 10 to 12 miles over terrain that would have been extremely difficult to track someone through. Thick forest, rocky ground, 2 creek crossings. I made deliberately random direction changes throughout the day. I wasn't doing this because I was scared. At least, that's what I told myself. I just wanted distance from the weirdness. I found a good spot and made camp again, built another small fire, made dinner, started to relax, told myself the encounter was behind me, and that was that. 2 nights later, I was sitting by the fire letting my mind wander when I heard a voice. It came from somewhere out in the darkness, beyond the edge of the firelight, 20 or 30 yards into the trees. A man's voice, conversational in tone, like he was asking a neighbor for directions. He asked me if I knew how to get to some canyon. I don't remember the exact name he used, but it wasn't a real place, not one I'd ever seen on any map of the area. I didn't answer. He asked again, same tone, same casual delivery, like we were standing in a parking lot somewhere and not alone in the wilderness in the middle of the night. I reached for my flashlight and pointed it toward the sound. The instant the beam swung in his direction, he screamed. Not a frightened scream, an angry one, a furious, guttural shout telling me to aim the light away. His voice was shaking with what sounded like rage. I kept the light aimed at the trees. My hand was trembling, but I held it steady. And then the beam found him. Same man, same clothes, same face, same person I had found sitting at my campfire 2 nights and roughly 15 miles of trackless backcountry ago. We locked eyes for maybe 2 seconds. His expression was blank, empty, like he was looking at something that wasn't a person. Then he turned and sprinted into the darkness again. The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. This was not a coincidence. This was not some random encounter. This man had been following me through deep wilderness for 2 days, across 15 miles of terrain that I had specifically tried to make difficult to follow, through forests and ridges and creeks, in the rain, without any visible gear. He had been tracking me like prey. I did not sleep that night. I sat with my back against a boulder, my knife in one hand and my flashlight in the other, and I stared into the dark until the sun came up. Every branch that creaked, every gust of wind, every small animal moving through the brush sent adrenaline flooding through me. At first light, I broke camp and started hiking out, 3 days back to my truck. I didn't take the most direct route. I doubled back multiple times. I changed direction. I walked through creeks wherever I could to make my trail harder to follow. I moved fast. Faster than I'd ever moved in backcountry with a full pack. The first night of the hike out, I didn't build a fire. Cold camp, no light at all. I lay in my tent with the rainfly pulled back so I could see the trees around me. Sometime after midnight, I heard footsteps. Slow, measured, deliberate, like someone pacing around my tent in a wide circle. They went around once, twice, a long pause, then a third time. I did not move. I barely breathed. My grip on the knife handle was so tight my fingers went numb. The footsteps faded into the forest. The second night I chose my spot carefully. A rocky outcrop with a clear line of sight in every direction. If anything approached, I would see it coming. Around 3 a.m, I heard a sound echoing up from the valley below me, a long, drawn-out howling. But it wasn't an animal. I've spent enough time outdoors to know the difference. This was a human voice, a human being making a sound that was meant to imitate an animal, or meant to be heard, or both. It echoed off the canyon walls and died. Then silence. I nearly cried. On the third day, I hiked 14 hours straight, no breaks longer than 5 minutes. I drank water while walking and ate handfuls of trail mix without stopping. When I finally reached the gravel parking area and saw my truck sitting exactly where I'd left it, I broke. I sat on the tailgate and shook for 20 minutes. My legs wouldn't stop trembling. My hands wouldn't close properly. I just sat there and let it wash through me. I filed a report with the park rangers the next day. They took notes, said they'd look into it, told me to follow up if I remembered anything else. I never heard back from them, not once. I've told this story to a handful of people over the years. Most of them ask me the same question. What do you think the guy wanted? And I always tell them the same thing. I have absolutely no idea. And that's the part that won't let me sleep.